What's going on, Godzilla Nation? This is our Godzilla, and welcome back to another installment of our Godzilla's footy tipping competition, looking ahead to AFL Round 7 action. Thank you for joining me, as always. Now, in the past few videos we have done for this little mini-series, we've kicked it off with talking about who tipped the most correct tips the previous week. What I am going to do moving forward, and I think not only will it be beneficial for myself to keep track, but also beneficial for you guys to keep track as well, I'm thinking of entering everybody's weekly tips into a Google document in which I will be able to post a link to you guys in future videos for you to keep track of each and every round you've tipped, who you've tipped, how many you've tipped correctly, with an overall rank on where you are sitting currently on the tipping ladder. If that is something you want to see, confirm that in the comment section down below. But with that being said, and without further ado, I'm just going to jump straight into the tips for round 7. There are some big games in many different retrospects this round. Some big games will push certain teams ahead of the pack. Other teams have matches that are really season defining, the line in the sand per se. We're kicking things off Friday night, Marvel Stadium. Don't ask me why it's at Marvel. It should be at the MCG. I'm just saying. Collingwood hosting Port Adelaide. The big American Mason Cox not in the lineup for Collingwood, but a good story because Sam Reid could potentially get his first game in 12 months for the Pies. And I'm actually going to back the Pies to get the job done here. I just feel, even though Lysette and Ryder have been a good combination in the ruck for Port Adelaide, I think Brodie Grundy is going to have a big day out in the ruck. Collingwood's contested ball in the midfield is something they pride themselves on. Port Adelaide's midfield group, even though they do have some contested balls, they prefer to get the ball out the back, get the uncontested ball out of the situation. I think when it comes to crunch, Collingwood's midfield is stronger than Port Adelaide's midfield. Even though they're going to be without Mason Cox up forward, I think they've got enough avenues to move the ball forward. And I think the fact that they're playing down here and Collingwood is starting to show some form down here will help Collingwood get over the line to kick off my tips for round 7. Saturday kicks off with the first line in the sand match that I alluded to earlier. Melbourne hosting Hawthorn at the MCG. Hawthorn have been doing Hawthorn things this year. A lot of people wrote Hawthorn off. I was one of them that said they'd missed the finals. They have been showing some pretty decent form and could potentially play finals this year. Prove a lot of people wrong. They're actually getting the job done without Tom Mitchell, which has shocked a lot of people considering how reliant they were on Mitchell's run through that midfield. I feel the line in the sand is for Melbourne. If Melbourne drop this game, they have pretty much faded away to no hopers for 2019, and they can put a line through their season. I am in absolute disarray as to what's going on at that club. For those of you who saw my predictions video at the start of the season, I predicted Melbourne to not only finish on top of the ladder, but to play in the grand final against Richmond this year. You can scrap finals off their list. There is no way with the football they're playing, Melbourne will come anywhere close to the top 8 this season. On the back of that statement, Hawthorn are getting the job done comfortably for myself in this game. They're going to continue their press, and a lot of questions are going to be asked of Simon Goodwin and the Melbourne Football Club coming out of the match on Saturday afternoon when they do drop the ball, because I'm confident they're going to do so and give Hawthorn another win. We move on over to see GWS taking on St Kilda. St Kilda's been one of the surprise packets this season, without a shadow of a doubt. But I feel GWS, even without Lockie Whitfield, as rumours are suggesting, Stephen Coniglio is still 50-50. If you take those players out, I still feel GWS are the stronger outfit. St Kilda, if they come out and upset GWS here, they are a genuine finals contender for this season, no shadow of a doubt. But in my mind, GWS are going to get the job done Saturday afternoon. Over at the Gabba, we've got Brisbane hosting Sydney, another line in the sand game. Not for Brisbane, because Brisbane have had a good run. This is for Sydney. A club who haven't missed finals in a very long time, now at risk of not only missing finals, but finishing amongst the bottom tier teams for 2019. I'm actually going to tip Brisbane to get the job done here. Not so much because it's at the Gabba, but Brisbane have shown a lot more this season for me to back them, more so than what Sydney have shown for me to think Sydney can travel and get the job done. Brisbane last week, even though some will say it was only against the Gold Coast, they've returned to the form that they started their 2019 campaign with, whereas Sydney, they've been wavering for the last few weeks. So Brisbane for me, over at the Gabba Saturday afternoon. Marvel Stadium, and I will be there in attendance, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the Bulldogs hosting Richmond. Richmond getting the job done in a scrappy win against Melbourne last weekend. Fremantle getting the better of the Bulldogs over in Perth. This is going to be a very good game. I am very excited to be able to go see this and see the young Tiger Cubs running amongst it. I am going to back Richmond to win here on the back of the fact that in last week's game and the week before, we've seen the Bulldogs backline take a couple of hits that we didn't expect, and they've really dropped the morale in that defensive 50. Personally, just my opinion. I think even with Riewoldt out, we could see the likes of Jacob Townsend come in for Richmond, add a lot more defensive forward pressure, kick a couple of goals. Tom Lynch should get off the chain here. I'm tipping him to kick 4 goals this game, and they'll notch up another win and prove a lot of naysayers wrong who said no rants, no finals. Well, ladies and gentlemen, sitting in 8th spot at the moment and looking very likely to play finals in 2019. Richmond for me, Saturday night. Saturday night rounds out over at Optus Stadium, the Eagles hosting the Gold Coast Suns. I'm tipping the Eagles. That's it. I'm not saying anything else about that. I'm tipping the Eagles. It's self-explanatory, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't pick the Eagles, there is something completely wrong with you. Eagles for me, Saturday night. Sunday kicks off at Marvel Stadium. Carlton hosting North Melbourne. Carlton dropping a game last weekend to Hawthorn that they should not have dropped. They looked very impressive. North Melbourne, they had a very good last quarter, but the 3 quarters before that, I'm not entirely sure. I said a couple of weeks ago, before Carlton defeated the Bulldogs, that I felt Carlton would get their first win against North Melbourne. Since then, they have beaten the Bulldogs, should have beaten Hawthorn, and I am tipping them to win this weekend for what should have been 3 in a row for the Carlton Blues, which would have been absolutely huge for the football club. However, you cannot argue the brand of football Carlton are playing is vastly superior to that of North Melbourne. And don't get me wrong, North Melbourne could come out here and absolutely put Carlton to the sword, but I just feel Carlton have been playing the better brand of football, and I know some North Melbourne supporters that are actually banking on Carlton to beat them. So I'm joining the masses, and for the Carlton fans on this channel, and I know there are a few of you, get around it. Your boys tipping Carlton again this weekend. Over at the MCG, Geelong having a home game at the MCG, quite fascinating, against Essendon. And this could potentially be one of the biggest games of the round. It really could be. Essendon, very valiant performance against Collingwood last week, losing it in the dying moments. Geelong just doing Geelong things and proving a lot of people wrong. The Holy Trinity this year have actually been working pretty well, considering they've made a lot of changes to their midfield group, and Selwood's now out on a wing, and Ablett and Dangerfield are playing more forward time. It's working at Geelong. It really is, and they've, in my eyes, pushed up as one of the main premiership threats for 2019. And on the back of that, I am tipping Geelong to get it done here. They're just vastly superior this season to many teams. They were unlucky to lose to GWS at GMHBA. Apart from that, they have been showing some very dominant performances. Essendon could upset. I'm not ruling that, that possibility out, but I just feel Geelong come in a hell of a lot more stronger than the Essendon lineup, and they'll get the job done quite comfortably Sunday afternoon. And round 7 rounds out at Adelaide Oval with Adelaide hosting Fremantle. Fremantle could do Fremantle things, rock up, and do one of two things here. They could absolutely smash Adelaide at home, or they'll absolutely get run all over the top of. I think Nat Fyfe is going to go huge in this game. That being said, I don't think it's going to be enough to defeat the collective of the Adelaide midfield. I'm going to tip Adelaide in a close game. I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people are going to predict. But I just feel the likes of Sloan, the Crouch brothers, they're going to get off the chain in this game. They don't have anybody to worry about. Fremantle are going to be very valiant here. I feel they're going to take it to Adelaide with everything they've got. There's a strong belief at Fremantle this season that we haven't seen in a very long time. If they get up and win, I'm not going to be upset, because I really feel Fremantle deserve a finals push considering how well they've played so far this season. But to me, it's just a very tall order to come down to Adelaide and knock them off at home. So to wrap up my tips for the round, we are looking at wins from Collingwood, Hawthorn, GWS, Brisbane, Richmond, the West Coast Eagles, Carlton, Geelong, and Adelaide. If you are competing in this footy tipping competition, you guys know what to do. Leave your tips in the comment section down below. I will update the Google document, as I said I was going to, make sure everybody's tips have been entered from rounds 1 through 6, and your tips this weekend will get added as well. So at the conclusion of round 7, going into round 8, there will be a fresh document for you guys to check out with the standings and all your correct and incorrect tips and all that good stuff. Just so you guys can follow along, as well as myself being able to keep up to date with everybody's scores as well. But that wraps up this video, guys. Thank you for joining me as always. If you have been enjoying this, please leave a like on the video. It goes a long way to supporting myself and my channel, and I cannot thank you guys enough for all that support. If you are new to the channel and are keen on checking out some gameplays, there are plenty to go check out here. I urge you to do so, and if you do enjoy the content I am throwing out, pledge your allegiance today by joining the God Zero Nation and hitting subscribe. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.